Hi everyone, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Brie, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a comparison of the mive style folder and the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2. It's been a while since I last did a phone related video, but I am slowly going to get back into doing these types of videos again, especially reviews for phones in general. I am going to do a long-term review of my daily driver, which is the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra at some point, and I'm also going to do a long-term review of my experience using the Samsung Galaxy Watch 8. At some point, I will most likely purchase the mive style folder 2, and when I do so, I'm going to do a review as well as a direct comparison with the mive style folder. So in today's comparison, I'm mostly going to do things in a similar way to how I do phone reviews. I'm going to discuss the overall specs, design of the phones, and of course get into details about software and app support, and then more or less conclude with which phone I think is better as a daily driver. Now, of course, people may have their personal preference, and it's absolutely fine because people look for different things in a smartphone or a flip phone, so to say. But I figured it would be interesting to compare these two models, and I think it's because they're actually quite popular, mainly on sites like YouTube or TikTok. And I think in general, flip phones have now started to sort of become trendy again, mainly because a lot of people, particularly those in Generation Z, want to replicate the 2000s aesthetic in terms of having a more basic phone which is functional but also not as distracting as expected. Of course, I suppose that statement is a bit of a contradiction because you can get distracting apps like social media and such, but then you can configure the phones in a way where you just have your basics as well as your utilities. So without further ado, let's begin. So the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2 is a direct, I guess, successor to the original Samsung Galaxy Folder, which is right here. And this phone was released back in July 2017, whereas the original Samsung Galaxy Folder, that is the Korean model that I have here, was released back in 2015. Now, with the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2, you actually have two designs for this phone. So the one that I have here is the white model, and I originally purchased this secondhand from eBay. With this particular model, there is a slight difference to the original design, which has the Samsung logo at the top here. So this one has more of a gradient for the front, and then you've got the Samsung logo right at the bottom middle. And then in comparison to the original design, you have a circular navigation key instead of a square one. Now, of course, considering that I recently sold the black model that I had, I can't really show you the physical comparison, but in the description below, I will have links to a couple of my older videos. So I have a link to the original Samsung Galaxy Folder 2 review I did, as well as a review for the My Style folder. So if you want to watch those, you can click on the description. And of course, for the review for this phone, there is a comparison with the black model. So just to give you a brief idea of what these two models look like, this is it. So on the left, you have the original Korean edition of the Samsung Galaxy Folder that has Android 5.1.1. And this is the Folder 2. So obviously there are elements of the design that carry over, but then there are certain things that have changed, mainly the front of the phone in terms of the screen, if that makes sense, as well as the hinge. So you've got a silver hinge here, white hinge on the right, and then you also have your navigation keys. So this one here is square, this one's circle, and then the keypad itself is more or less the same. So going back to the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2, this particular phone is available in a range of colours. So you've got black, you've got white, wine red, gold, and of course orange, which is an interesting choice because you don't really get, let's say, overly flashy colours these days, if that makes sense. With the mive style folder, I'm not entirely sure when this particular phone was released. It could have been the late 2010s or maybe the early 2020s, but it's hard to tell because if you were to Google this particular phone or go on some other search engine, it doesn't really say. But with this phone, you can get it in two different colours. So obviously the only colours you can get this in are black and white. And I guess for those who like to have more of a variety, the Folder 2 is probably a better choice. That is the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2. So in terms of the overall design, let's take a look at both phones. So first off, you can see that the mive style folder, has the logo at the top left, and as per mentioned, for the Folder 2, you've got the Samsung logo on the bottom middle of the phone. Whilst the mive style folder has a very sleek and smooth white front cover, the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2 has this nice gradient, so it kind of goes from grey to white, although it might be a bit hard to tell due to the way the camera is focusing. So looking at more aspects of the design, you can see at the bottom here you have two ports. So the mive style folder uses the more modern USB-C port, and this USB-C port is actually the standard for the majority of most smartphones or even modern flip phones these days. And then of course you have the older USB 2.0 for the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2. Now, of course, if you look at the side, you might notice there's something quite interesting about the mive style folder, and that is the addition of the 3.5mm headphone jack, which is a feature that was omitted probably around the late 2010s, considering that Bluetooth earphones and headphones are again quite normalized in today's world of tech. So of course, when it comes to listening to audio, you can use wireless headphones or wireless earphones, but it more or less depends on personal preference. So obviously I do have wireless earphones and I will get the ones that I currently have. So the ones that I currently have at the moment are the Buds 4 Pro by Samsung, and this is what they look like. Obviously it's in a case, and this is a case that I made myself. So these are the Buds 4 Pro, which are supported for the mive style folder because they tend to support a mix of older and newer earphones, if that makes sense. But at the time when I took this phone with me during my trip to Clacton-on-Sea last year, I was using the Buds 3 Pro, and I found that the quality is pretty decent on this particular phone. In fact, the quality is the same as what I would get on my daily driver, which is my S25 Ultra, as well as my laptop, which is a Samsung Galaxy Book 4 Pro 360. It's a bit of a long title. Now, as for the Galaxy Folder 2, unfortunately there is no headphone jack available, so you would have to use a wireless earphones or headphones. In the case of the Galaxy Buds, the only models that you can use with this phone are either the original Buds, Buds Plus, or the Buds Live. And this is because newer models such as the Buds 2, Buds 2 Pro, Buds 3, Buds 3 Pro, FE, etc., they are not supported for the Fold 2 at all, and this is due to issues with software compatibility. So looking at the backs of these two phones, and I'm also sorry, before I forget to mention, you do have a volume rocker on the right hand side for the mive style folder, and then you've got this hole here which can be used to insert cutesy keychains, and the Galaxy Folder 2 also has that as well. So looking at the back, both phones support 8 megapixel cameras with flash. So these are what the cameras look like. So you've got a circular one for the mive style folder plus a speaker grill. And then you also have a square one with a silver ring around it with a speaker grill on the right hand side. In terms of the batteries as well and the back case itself, the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2 does have a removable battery, and for anybody who likes to have phones with removable batteries, this is a bonus, especially because if you're out and you're not near a charging site, it's very easy to just take the cover off and insert a new battery in. Now, of course, you have to be a bit careful with the cover just because the plastic is a bit thin, and normally you just kind of insert something in the silo so you can take out the battery. So this battery is a 1950 milliamp hour battery, of course, and I do have a spare one in my drawer. And when you take the battery out, you can see that you've got a micro SIM port. So because this is an unlockable phone, you can use pretty much any carrier. So since I'm based in the UK, I typically use EE for either phone. You also have a micro SD card port as well. So I've got a 128 gigabyte SD card stored in this phone. Now, as for the mive style folder, unfortunately, the cover itself is not removable, but you do have a 2100 milliamp hour battery, and of course, you do have a tray here where you can insert a SIM card as well as an SD card for expandable storage. And as you can see on the left hand side, you have your volume rockers. In terms of the storage itself, both phones either have 16, oh sorry, no, my mistake. So the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2 has either 16 or 32 gigabytes of internal storage. But as mentioned, expandable storage is available for this phone, as you can obviously insert an SD card of your choice. This phone has 16 gigabytes of internal storage, and again, you can insert a micro SD card with the storage amount of your choice if you want to expand it. So of course, that is quite the advantage for individuals who like to have that extra storage, especially because, again, a lot of modern smartphones or flip phones these days don't have that option anymore. So whatever internal storage you get, that's what you're stuck with. So when you open the phones, you can see that there are elements of design that are quite similar. So both phones support a 5 megapixel selfie camera, and then you have speaker grills, and then you also have your notification lights as well. So if you get messages or any other types of notifications, then it's easy for you to sort of see because of the light flashing. You also have these screens here as well. So both phones are touchscreen, although you have the option of using the physical keypad. So looking at the physical keypad, you can clearly see that there are some similarities. So because these phones are originally from South Korea, the typical language that is used is Chunjin. However, you can pretty much change the language to whatever it is you want. So because I'm based in the UK, I typically use English UK. So as you can see, these are your navigation keys and your keypad as well. So you have your back key on both phones. You've got a key here in the middle to take you back to the home screen. Oh wait, sorry, this isn't the back key. So this key here, as well as this one here for the Folder 2, is for your app drawer, so you can see what apps are currently open. And then, as mentioned, the key in the middle is to take you back to the home screen, and this is your back key. Now, both keys, or both keypads, sorry, also have your little shortcuts for navigation purposes. So this key here and here is for contacts. This is for the camera. this one is for messages and this one's for messages, and I believe this key allows you to set a specific app of your choice, although I've never tried it before, so please correct me if I'm wrong. And this is your social app key. So because the folder 2 is originating from South Korea, typically this key takes you to KakaoTalk, which is a typical social media or instant messaging app used in South Korea. And then of course you have your physical keypad, which is standard. So you've got your Korean or Chunjin letters, and then this is like your back key for when you're typing, and then the hash key here doubles as a space bar as well. And you can use this key here or here to switch between keyboards. You can switch between your English and Korean keyboard or whichever language you set, or you can even switch between the emoji keyboard. And then you can use the number keypad to either dial or type, but obviously when you're typing, you do have to pretty much press multiple times for the letters you want to get. And then of course, you also have your circular navigation keys, which are a little different design-wise. So this one is in black and is circular, and then this one has your little silver ring, I guess. So now that I have pretty much talked a bit more about the design, what I'm going to do is switch the phones on, and I'm going to show you more in terms of software, app support, and then of course I'm going to show you some recent pictures and videos that I've taken as well, so you can get an idea of what they look like side by side. So I will see you in that part. So welcome back to the next part of this video, where I'm going to show more in terms of software as well as app support. So as you can see, I have just switched the phones on and they are just starting to come on, if that makes sense. So the folder 2 is a bit faster, but oh well. So this is what both phones look like when they are switched on. I'm just going to turn down the brightness for the folder 2 a bit, just because I think it's a little bit hard for the camera to focus. So I'm hoping this looks a lot better than expected, considering that I am currently using my S25 Ultra camera. So this is what the home screens look like. At least this is how I've decided to design mine. So as you can see here, I have my apps, and it's the same thing for folder 2 as well. And I do have 2 different types of themes. So with this particular home screen, I do have one of my favorite characters from a manga I like, Yu Hakusho, which also has an anime. So this is, of course, Yusuke Urameshi, who's very popular, of course. So if you know what Yu Hakusho is, that's great. So this is just a wallpaper that I found on Pinterest. And as you can see, the apps here are actually from a launcher that I'm using, if that makes sense. So because the mive style folder does not have an option to sort of, I guess, obtain themes, I have used a third-party launcher called Nova Launcher, and I also used a icon pack called Chic Pastel. I've also done the same thing for my Samsung Galaxy Folder 2. So I have a Sailor Moon wallpaper. So this one was drawn by Naoko Takeuchi, and Yu Hakusho is by Yoshihiro Takashi. So both of them, I believe, are married, which is quite interesting because the themes make sense now. But this is what the app screen looks like on my folder 2. So again, I'm using Nova Launcher, but because this particular phone has an older software, I do have a specific version of Nova Launcher that I'm using, and I am going to link that in the description below, as well as a tutorial on how I download apps for older phones. Although the tutorial was done using my LG smartphone, it does work for other Android phones as well, so that will all be in the description. So this is what the app screen looks like. So in terms of the software itself, This phone, which is the Folder 2, has Android 6.0.1, which is also known as Android Marshmallow. And then the mive style folder has Android 12 Go, which is basically a, I guess, sort of watered down edition of Android 12, considering how small the phone is. But in terms of app support, I would definitely say for the most part, both phones can actually work with most apps, but I suppose in the case of the Folder 2, due to older software, certain apps may not be compatible, that is, latest versions of apps, if that makes sense. But obviously, in terms of the app support, I would say that if you are looking for older apps for the Folder 2, as mentioned, you can use external methods to install them. So typically what I like to do is use APK Mirror to install older versions of apps. So I go on the website and then I find whatever app I want, which is compatible for this particular phone. Now, when it comes to apps for the Folder 2, of course, you get your basics like your phone, your contacts, messages, etc. But you can get a lot of social media and instant messaging apps as well. But I don't really have much social media nowadays except this and perhaps TikTok. I just haven't installed TikTok just yet. But you can also see here, you can use other instant messaging apps, so you can use things like Telegram or WhatsApp, for example. And I also have YouTube on here as well, but I think this is a slightly older version of YouTube that I've got, because again, this phone has Android 6. So as you can see here, because this version of YouTube is out of date, I have to now use the browser for it. So if I just go into youtube.com, I can use it on there. So as I mentioned before, this is kind of the downside of having Android 6, is knowing that app support can be quite limited due to certain apps having updates that are just simply incompatible. So I don't know, let's say I wanted to search for something on here. Let's say I'm searching for the mive style folder or even the mive style folder 2. You can see that YouTube itself does work on the browser at least, but it is quite slow. So I am going to be honest, when it comes to phone speeds, don't expect this phone to work fast, if that makes sense, just because the software, I would say, is just quite old. So this is what YouTube looks like using the browser. It is a bit strange using it through a browser, but this is the best that you'd be able to do. The sound on this phone is quite decent, I would say. And of course, as I mentioned, you can use various earphones, but again, it depends on your model. So I'm going to show you a couple of other apps that I can use on this particular phone as well, but I'm not going to show any personal apps or things like that. I do have YouTube Studio on here, which I typically use to, I guess, track subscriptions and such. But again, because this is Android 6, you would have to use external methods to find a more compatible version of the phone. So this is the calendar as well. So the calendar here is quite basic, and it's very jarring compared to the calendar that I'm accustomed to on my S25 Ultra, because I mean, when I was using this phone abroad a couple of years ago, it was very hard for me using this calendar, especially because I'm used to having all my stickers, I'm used to having my themes, and of course I'm used to using the stylus. But the S Pen in itself, I guess you can't really use it on this phone. You do have other apps on here like Samsung Notes. So this is again an older version of Samsung Notes, but I think I am able to update it, It's just I haven't signed into my Samsung account on here, so until then I'm not able to update it. But speaking of apps and such, you do have two different app stores. So you have the Galaxy Store, which is typically for mainly Samsung themed apps, and a couple of other apps that you can't really find in the Play Store. But I would definitely say the Google Play Store does have more options where apps are concerned. The only thing is when you're trying to install certain apps as well, like TikTok for example, it can be a bit slow. So you can clearly see here that it's pending, and of course this is what happens. So it does take a bit of time, again due to software. So whilst this is installing, I'm going to take a look at the My Style folder. So with the My Style folder, again, most of the apps that you get are the basics, but as mentioned, there is a lot better app support. So there's certain apps on my main phone, which is my S25 Ultra, that I use on a regular basis, like City Mapper when I'm tracking bus or train times, Dailyo when I'm recording, say, my overall mental health and such. You've even got the ability to use YouTube and YouTube Studio on here. So I will show you what the YouTube app looks like on this phone, because as mentioned, YouTube actually does work a lot better on this one. So this is the YouTube app for the My Style folder. It is still a little slow, but again, it's a lot better than using the browser, I guess. So I'm going to show you something on here, and also just to be a bit more specific, this is what the keyboard looks like using the mive style folder. So you have your standard English keyboard, and then you can switch to Korean, you can switch to symbols as well, and then as you can see here, you've got different symbols you could choose from. And then when you press this, you've got your Android style emojis. I'm also going to show you the touchscreen keyboard using the Galaxy Folder 2 in a minute. So this is what it looks like when you're typing. Now, of course, a lot of people might not be used to typing on the physical keypad, purely because with touchscreen keypads, it's just a lot easier. I do kind of alternate between typing on this keypad, same thing with the Folder 2, I alternate, but it mostly depends on what I feel like. So this is an example of a short, but again, it takes a little bit of time to load. But this is a nice, cute little custom someone did on their classic Q20. I did have a BlackBerry Classic Q20, but I recently sold it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the keyboard on the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2. So I'm going to just show you using the Notes app, and then I'm going to show you, I guess, a bit of social media after, as in TikTok, just to show you what it looks like on both phones. So this is the standard keyboard for the Samsung Galaxy Folder 2. So of course, again, you can switch between your symbols. You can switch to emojis as well. So these are the Samsung TouchWiz emojis. And then I'm just going to just put that aside with the other touchscreen keyboard, just so you get an idea of what they look like side by side. So I'm just going to get the text function up. And these are your... Okay, so we're just going to start again. Now you can see here the emojis come out a little differently, because I think what tends to happen with this phone for some reason is you have the Android-esque emojis, whereas the ones in the tray are more, I guess, defined. So these are your emojis for both keyboards. But this one, you scroll down, I guess, and yeah, so you kind of scroll down, and then this one you sort of swipe, I guess. The only thing is the emojis here look quite cartoonish on the My Style folder, but of course I suppose it does the job. And then this is what the keyboards look like, and let's do a bit of typing, shall we? So to type on this keyboard, you pretty much have to use your physical trackpad here. So I'm just going to type a quick message. So you just, when you're typing, you kind of have to give it some time when it comes to, I guess, changing letters. So you just kind of wait it out, I guess. And then this is your back key. This acts as your spacebar, as I mentioned. So it's pretty much the same thing for the Samsung Galaxy folder, but I'm going to show you anyway, just so you have an idea of what it looks like. And I'm just going to do a nice little spacebar. I'm going to select an emoji. And I'm just going to do the same thing here. So again, you're going to be using the same keyboard, same layout. I'm not really good at typing with these keyboards. I almost forgot to mention as well that I think I forgot to change, because yeah, I did. I forgot to change my keyboard. So when you press this button here, you can change between your keyboards. So you've got your 1, 2, 3, which is for your numbers. You've got your symbols, you've got the Korean keyboard, and then you've got the English one and the emoji keyboard. So I completely forgot that you can change the keyboard. I think I'm a little bit faster at typing with this one, because when I was using this phone abroad, I was actually typing with this particular keyboard. But again, you can use the touchscreen keyboard, but I suppose if you used to use smartphones or flip phones like this in the past, primarily the 2000s, typing was a lot easier for you. So let's see what the messages look like on the phones, shall we? So there's your hello there messages. So now I'm going to show you what TikTok looks like, and I suppose maybe a few more apps. Then I'm going to show you some pictures and videos, and then get to the gist of which phone is better for everyday use. So this is what TikTok looks like using the My Style folder. It is still very slow on my folder too, so TikTok Lite, which is what I've had to use since the other one wasn't installing for some reason, was loading. Now, of course, it does run okay on the My Style folder, but again, sometimes it's a little slow. So it's just kind of, I guess, taking its time when you're scrolling. I'm not really sure if I would recommend using it on this phone on a regular basis just because of the slowness, but I suppose TikTok Lite is an alternative. As for the folder 2, for some reason it's not really coming up on here, so I have tried to see if it would load, but it kind of, I guess, has an issue with the cache or something. I don't really know. But anyway, since it looks like it might end up crashing or something, I suppose I can show you what other apps look like on both these phones. So this is the Dailyo app. Of course, it's not up to date because I mostly use it on my daily driver, of course, but this is what it typically looks like on both phones, and this is an app I use when I'm recording my overall mood and such, as well as my mental health and well-being. There are no entries here because, again, this is not exactly up to date. So the last time I updated was 2025 on here, 2023 on here, but for some reason it's not responding quite well in my MyStyle folder. I also have the Journey app, but I'm not really going to go into it. It's basically what I use for journaling. And of course, I almost forgot to mention that with this phone, I have NewPipe, which is a YouTube client that I've been using for quite some time. So this is like an alternative to YouTube, which comes with less distractions, I guess. So, there you go. I don't know if it works very well on this phone anymore, primarily because I don't know if it needs updating or something, but when I used it last year, it was working, and I tried to install it on the Folder 2, but it just didn't work very well. There's also an app that I use here called Money Plus, which I suppose is for, calculating expenses and such, but I haven't really updated it in ages, so this was what it looked like the last time. But it's a really cute app, and it helps me keep track of all of my expenses, because if I don't keep track of things this way, then I just end up having problems. I also have playbooks, so this is what I obviously use for reading. I've pretty much read all the books on here except Butter, because I kind of found it boring. But of course, this does need some updating as well. So I think now what I will probably do at this point is just show you the pictures and videos I've taken, and then I'm going to get to the gist of which phone I think is better for daily use. So here we go. So I would definitely say, after careful consideration, between these two phones, I think the mive style folder is probably the better choice when it comes to using a phone as a daily driver. The reason I would pick this phone over the Folder 2 is for certain features, mainly the 3.5mm headphone jack, because you have the option to use Bluetooth earphones or headphones, as well as non-Bluetooth earphones or headphones if you're not a person that likes to use more up-to-date stuff. And in terms of app support, again, considering that this phone has Android 12 Go, I would definitely say the app support is a lot more varied, primarily because you can get more apps like YouTube, TikTok, Telegram, WhatsApp, if you use it on there, even Pinterest, which I almost forgot to mention, you can get on here as well. And even though this phone doesn't have a removable battery, I think the app support, as well as the headphone jack option makes up for it. And then of course you also have the modernized USB-C port, which actually makes quite a lot of sense in today's world, considering how tech is more modernized than ever. And I suppose these days it's a little harder to get charging cables for this type of port unless you order online. Now, I'm not going to say the Folder 2 is a bad phone. I mean, you do have a removable battery and such. As for the camera for photos and videos, I mean, it does its purpose, of course. You don't really expect much from an 8 megapixel back camera, let alone a 5 megapixel selfie camera. And this is because cameras have evolved over time. So in today's world, having 8 megapixels for a back camera and 5 megapixels for a selfie camera is not exactly great in 2026. So I suppose this is the end of the comparison. I hope everything makes a lot of sense. Please let me know what you think. And of course, as always, please like, comment and subscribe. I do have additional links now for other content. So that includes my blog, which I post on every so often. I've also got my card for all of my external links. I've also got my Ko-fi. So if you want to donate to help support my content, as well as, I guess, putting things towards maybe equipment and such, you can do that, or you can donate through super thanks, or even join my membership where you can get custom made badges drawn by me, custom made emojis, early access to videos, and in the future I will have some art tutorials and like behind the scenes editing and such. And then as of recently I have opened my Etsy shop, so I've now got some items. Please note it's UK and EU shipping only at the moment, and I do have a digital shop on my Ko-fi if you want to purchase digital products. Primarily watch faces and wallpapers are what I have at the moment. You don't have to, but if you can afford to and you can put in that extra contribution, I'd be so grateful. I'd also like to say as well, thank you for helping me get to 1.6k subscribers on this channel. Still trying to get used to, I guess, the whole, oh, I've got lots of subscribers on YouTube thing, because sometimes I wonder why people watch my videos. But if you like what you see, that's great. So thank you for all of your support and your feedback and such. And until the next video, this is bye for now.